Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. Early bird royal watchers line the streets near Parliament Hill to catch a glimpse of the King and Queen. Plus, in a rare event for Canada's monarch, King Charles formally opens Parliament by reading the speech from the throne. And wildfires forced thousands of residents out of their homes across the prairies.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks so much for joining us. King Charles has formally opened Parliament by reading the speech from the throne in a rare event for Canada's monarch. After inspecting a 100-person honor guard and receiving a 21-gun salute, King Charles and Queen Camilla entered the Senate building as trumpets played, walking past members of Parliament and Indigenous leaders. He then read the throne speech, setting out Prime Minister Mark Carney's priorities for the current session and his vision for nation building and economic growth.
The Prime Minister and the President of the United States, for example, have begun defining a new economic and security relationship between Canada and the United States, rooted in mutual respect and founded on common interests to deliver transformational benefits for both sovereign nations. The government is guided by its conviction that the economy is only truly strong when it serves everyone. Many Canadians are struggling to get ahead. The government is responding, reducing middle-class taxes and saving two-income families up to $840 a year. It will cut the GST on homes at or under $1 million for first-time home buyers, delivering savings of up to $50,000. And it will lower the GST on homes between $1 million and $1.5 million.
Before King Charles delivered the speech from the throne, early bird royal watchers lined up behind barricades in front of Parliament Hill today to catch a glimpse of the royals. King Charles and Queen Camilla began their procession in a horse-drawn carriage, accompanied by Governor-General Mary Simon and escorted by Mounties. The entourage made its way to the Senate building, where the King received full military honors.
As a Canadian, I feel that when the head of state of Canada comes to perform the highest level of responsibility, that is opening the first session of a new parliament, we as Canadians need to be here to cheer him on.
A witness to history, something that may not ever happen again in our lifetimes, where a monarch opens Parliament in Canada.
We love to see the royal family. We have always liked to see the royal family.
We're going to miss this opportunity. I don't know how many more times we'll see King Charles.
Oh, this is true, yeah.
So we thought we better not miss this.
I've been in Canada for over 65 years. It's my country. Didn't get to meet his mother, but I thought I needed to be here for him, for the mother.
Alberta's chief electoral officer has issued writs for 3 provincial by-elections to be held on Monday, June 23rd. The by-election will be held in the ridings of Edmonton, Ellerslie, Edmonton, Strathcona, and Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills. Edmonton, Strathcona is expected to be the most closely watched by-election, with NDP leader Naheed Nenshi looking to win the seat left vacant following the resignation of previous NDP leader Rachel Notley. Candidate nominations are now open and will close on June 5th. Advanced voting begins on Tuesday, June 17th, and will wrap up on Saturday, June 21st. Election day is the 23rd, with official results announced on Thursday, July 3rd at 10 a.m. The Alberta Teachers Association is taking the temperature of its members, and it would be safe to say they're running a fever. The union has taken what's called a strike authorization vote, which is a precursor to an actual strike vote. Members have voted 99% in favor, which the union says sends a strong signal to the government that teachers can no longer hold up what they call a crumbling public education system. Members voted 62% against a mediated settlement earlier this month. The ATA's Provincial Executive Council will determine the next steps. The risk of flooding in Calgary and southern Alberta has been greatly reduced thanks to a new reservoir that has been completed. The new Springbank off-stream reservoir is located in Rocky View County, about 15 kilometers west of Calgary on Treaty 7 land. The $850 million project was designated and built following the devastating floods in 2013. Flooding that cost $1.7 billion in damage. The new reservoir will manage downstream water flows by temporarily holding water and reducing flows along the Elbow River. The diversion channel will move water to the storage reservoir, protecting surrounding areas from flooding. The reservoir will be able to contain water volume equivalent to 28,000 Olympic swimming pools. It will then release it back into the river after the flood risk has passed. Wildfires have forced residents across the Prairies out of their homes. Authorities in Manitoba say about 600 residents from a town northwest of Winnipeg have been ordered out due to an advancing wildfire. Some 1,300 residents of Swan Hills, Alberta, have also been ordered to leave ahead of an advancing wind-whipped fire nearby. Meanwhile, the Peter Ballantine Cree Nation in Saskatchewan has imposed an evacuation order for more than 1,800 residents of Pelican Narrows, which is northeast of Saskatoon. The city of Grand Prairie, Alberta, is getting a financial shot in the arm as it continues to transition to its own municipal police force. The province has announced $7 million in additional funding to get the police service up and running.
This funding is going to help cover some of the projected startup costs associated with the building, the implementation, the new service, including salaries and benefits and recruitment and equipment and training. And by removing some of this financial pressure, we're helping to ensure that the Grand Prairie Police Service is well positioned to succeed as the primary police of jurisdiction for this city in 2026.
The city of Grand Prairie decided to phase out the RCMP and create its own municipal police force in 2023. Tuesday's funding announcement builds on the initial commitment from the Alberta government of $9.7 million over 2 years. The total cost estimated for the 5-year transition is about $19 million. A judge has fined a commercial kitchen company $10,000 for bylaw offenses linked to an E. coli outbreak at Calgary daycares that saw hundreds of children fall ill. Fueling Minds pleaded guilty in April to 4 offenses after the 2023 outbreak. About 448 people were infected with E. coli, including 39 children and 1 adult who were hospitalized. A report by Alberta Health Services says the outbreak was likely tied to meatloaf, but that it might never be determined how the bacteria actually got there. A Freedom Convoy organizer has asked the Ontario Court of Justice for a stay of proceedings for his involvement in the 2022 protest in downtown Ottawa. Chris Barber argues that the legal advice given to him by police officers, lawyers, and a Superior Court judge during the rally was erroneous, and that as a result, the Crown is not entitled to convict him. The Crown is pursuing a 2-year prison sentence against Barber and to seize his truck. If the application for a stay of proceedings is successful, Barber would not see prison time, nor would his truck be seized. Diane Magus, Chris Barber's lawyer, says he testified at the stay application on May 21st and 22nd, but they were not able to complete the submissions. He is due back in court May 30th to complete those submissions. Rural healthcare was the topic of discussion Tuesday at the Sandman Signature. The Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce hosted a conference called Bridging the Gap. The event featured panel discussions, data presentations, and opportunities for healthcare professionals to network with various healthcare and community leaders. Teladoc Health Canada, the main sponsor, is attempting to develop a hybrid system of care where doctors and physicians can meet remotely in areas where there are shortages of staff and services.
There is not an equal representation of access to physicians in rural and remote, or even general healthcare services that match the population needs. So for example, you can't have all of the physicians that you need in certain communities that meet the needs of the patients and Albertans in those regions. And so there's just a huge opportunity, I think, in certain cases to leverage technology to bridge where patients have a need and where you can bring in certain specialists or GPs or even professionals for mental health into those communities remotely. So I think there's a huge opportunity, again, working as a team of collective intelligence and also collective capabilities of bringing solutions together.
A survey conducted by Nanos Group, commissioned by Teladoc, concludes that 74% of Albertans are somewhat comfortable with virtual care being used for non-urgent issues. 2/3 of Albertans are comfortable with a hybrid model of care that leverages technology to combine in-person care with virtual clinics. Lethbridge police are investigating a single vehicle rollover in the coulees that happened Tuesday night on the north side of the city just after 9 o'clock behind the 800 block of Jesse McClay Road North. When police arrived, they located a 33-year-old female passenger a short distance from the vehicle and the 35-year-old male driver still inside. The two people were transported to hospital with serious injuries. Further investigation determined they'd been traveling northbound on Stafford Drive when the driver failed to navigate a corner. The vehicle crashed through a chain link fence and rolled multiple times down an embankment. Police believe both speed and alcohol were factors in the crash. The investigation is ongoing and police say charges are pending. Starting in June, the Coaldale and Picture Butte RCMP will equip all frontline officers with body-worn cameras. The Mounties say it's part of their ongoing commitment to transparency, accountability, and modernization. Sergeant Mike Noonan, Coaldale Picture Butte RCMP Detachment, says body cams are increasingly used by police agencies worldwide for their ability to provide accurate, unbiased audio-video documentation of police interactions. Key benefits include enhanced accountability and public trust, improved police community interactions, better evidence collection, and efficient complaint resolution.
So I just wanted the public to be aware and informed that our officers, if they're encountering our officers, they will be wearing body cams, and I think it's a great tool for both us and for the public to protect each of us and provide an accurate description or occurrence event and both video and audio capability that can be used in court. It's very important because it will show from the start of the incident right to the end. Oftentimes we get a video sent to us or provided that only shows a portion of an interaction, which doesn't tell the whole story.
Noonan says RCMP is deploying 10,000 to 15,000 cameras across the country. Well, if you're in downtown Lethbridge this summer, be on the lookout for Foodie Fest. On the last Tuesday of each month from now until August, food trucks and downtown restaurants will participate in a celebration of culture and flavor. Participating food trucks will gather around Galt Gardens and Festival Square, while nearby restaurants offer free samples to visitors.
This is one of the first festivals that we do, and it's always nice to come out and enjoy the beautiful weather and seeing people out at large and kind of enjoying downtown and all the businesses and stuff coming around and just getting out. And if you're in the area, make sure you come on down and don't miss it. If you see it coming up again this year or next year, you always have a good time and good food to be eaten by everybody.
Some downtown shops will stay open late while Foodie Fest runs until 8 p.m. once again on the last Tuesday of each month throughout the summer. Definitely mark your calendars for that if you're working near downtown. Sounds fun. That food looked really good too. Well, 2 local roller derby jammers will lace up their skates down under and wear the maple leaf to represent Canada during the Junior Roller Derby World Cup 2025 in Australia. The tournament will take place from July 26th to 28th and will bring together youth skaters from 10 countries. The head coach for Canada's Junior Roller Derby 2025, Caroline Reimer, explains.
Especially as far away as Australia, we've really focused on our biggest challenge, which would be playing Team USA. So our goal is to train to play USA, to train to compete against USA, and our sight is that gold medal game. I think being able to bring Canada in, and we're in the forefront of many sports. We are a kind team, we're thoughtful, we are tough, we're strong, but we also understand that we're playing different people and we adjust our play to the team that we're playing. So it's a huge honor to be able to represent our country.
The new strength I'm bringing is positivity. Last time I was younger, I was 14. This time I'm 16, and I think that my maturity is higher. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited to be there with my team because me and my team are really close. I think win or lose, place or not, it's gonna be such a good experience, and we're just gonna have lots of fun, and it means a lot to be there. It's an honor.
And this will be the second appearance at the international event representing Team Canada, which is held every 2 years. Good luck to them. Therapeutic horseback riding has been around for many years. Proponents say it can help with both mental and physical health, but some people are afraid of horses. So what happens then? Well, on the West Coast, the Victoria Therapeutic Riding Association has the perfect solution to that problem. They've partnered with the University of Victoria to create the Miracolt Horse Riding Motion Simulator. Take a look.
So Casey's getting the three-dimensional movement of his pelvis, just like if he were sitting on a real horse, and having to find his center while the horse is moving, right? Sound good? So this will allow an ability, there's something for everybody. If there's not a horse available or someone's not able to get on the horse, this allows them to have that experience and grow into the program and continue to thrive and grow and be connected to community. Because that's what it's about.
Really look forward to celebrating the unique combined use of 2 technologies, one of which is a commercially available product, and the other, which is a Canvas created product. And you're going to be hearing more about that, but it's really exciting to have this opportunity. This novel solution builds confidence and strength, which helps participants overcome barriers to riding horses. It also increases confidence. It increases physical capacity. People develop more muscle tone. They're, in some cases, I heard this morning, they're actually avoiding the use of wheelchairs as a result of participating in this particular riding program. And now, with our new combined device, even more individuals are going to have that opportunity, which is just amazing.
Big high five there. The simulator is the third project undertaken by the Riding Association and UVic's Can Assist program. It's been completely funded by 2 local donors, Linda and Marie Farmer. It is definitely horseback riding season right now, and I hope you had your sunglasses handy today. We had lots of sunshine as we headed towards a high of 27 degrees. UV index was also 8, which is considered very high, and we'll be seeing a lot more of that this week. On the other side of the break, I'll tell you just how warm it's about to get. Well, we've got a warm couple of days ahead of us with clear skies both day and night up until some clouds developing on Saturday evening to make way for some showers on Sunday and Monday. So mainly clear skies, like I was saying, 28 though for the high on Wednesday, up to 33 on Thursday. I think that'll be our first 33 of the year there. 27 expected on Friday, high of 29 on Saturday, and then like I said, Saturday night, developing clouds for a 60% chance of showers Sunday, high of 20 degrees, and then 40% chance on Monday of showers, 15 for the high there. So that's quite a little bit of drop there from that 33. So average high for this time of year, 20. Average low, 6 degrees. 32 degrees was our record high on this day, and that happened back in 1928 and again in 1936. So the record low on this day was back in 1918. Yes, -2 it was. And sun rose this morning at 5:33, sunset this evening at 9:25. So we're seeing 15 hours, 52 minutes of daylight, 2 minutes more of daylight than we saw yesterday. Okay, fairly clear skies on the west coast tomorrow. Victoria sitting at 24 degrees. A bit of windy conditions, though, up to 30k winds and 30 to 50k and even 70 km/h winds in the Juan de Fuca Strait. 24 in Vancouver with lovely clear skies, feeling more like 29 inland and quite a bit of a humidex as well. Humidex of 34 inland Vancouver. Both Edmonton and Calgary under a heat warning tomorrow, though that happens when temperatures are expected to reach about 29 or higher. So we are seeing that high of 29 expected tomorrow in Edmonton. Could see a high of 28 in Calgary, which is also very close to that. Looking to the rest of the prairies, we're seeing mainly clear skies across them. 29 for the high in Saskatoon, 28 in Regina, and 27 in Winnipeg. Winnipeg could also see some hazy conditions, of course, due to those wildfires. I should mention also that Saskatoon could see a risk of a thunderstorm this evening. Looking to the central portion of the country, Toronto, seeing a 40% chance of showers tomorrow, 16 for the high there. Expecting 26 the high in Ottawa and 27 in Montreal tomorrow, with mainly clear skies. Ottawa could see a bit of cloud coverage towards the latter part of the day. Looking to the east coast now, Fredericton seeing some fog dissipating in the morning, but mainly clear skies throughout the rest of the day. High of 26, same thing in Halifax, high of 26 degrees. Cooler along parts of the coast though, more like 15 degrees. And then Charlottetown 24 with clear skies and more like 13 the closer to the coast that you are there. 16 degrees expected in St. John's with a 40% chance of showers there. So there you have it, that is your forecast. More than 8,300 workers will lose their jobs by the time Hudson's Bay closes all of its stores on June 1st. New court documents obtained by the Canadian Press say the job cuts will be about 1,000 staff at the retailer who will work for 2 more weeks to let people pick up furniture and fixtures they bought. After that, just over 100 employees will remain dedicated to the Bay's retail operations, its corporation and distribution centers. The filings made in the retailer's creditor protection case show workers will not get termination or severance packages, but will collect accrued vacation pay based on their last day of work. A new Equifax report says there's a divide between consumers in the face of economic uncertainty as those missing payments rose compared with a year ago. The report finds 1.4 million people missed at least one credit payment during the first quarter. That's despite the average monthly credit card spending falling by $107 per cardholder. The report says total consumer debt grew to $2.55 trillion in the first 3 months of 2025, up 4% year over year. Gathering a down payment is a big step for home buyers, but real estate experts say there are other elements to consider before jumping into home ownership. They say buyers should have a mortgage pre-approval in hand when shopping for a home, not just a pre-qualification. Home buyers should also have money set aside for everything from closing costs to inspections and moving insurance. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 195 points on the day to finish at 26,269. The Dow was up 740 points to 42,343. The S&P 500 was up 118 to 5,921, and the Nasdaq was up 461 points to 19,199. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 4 cents to 61.07 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 13 cents to $3.40 US. Gold was down 46.29 to $3,326 US an ounce. Silver was down 15 cents to $33.25 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.76 per bushel. Barley is at $6.85. Canola is at $16.46. and corn is at $7.89 per bushel. Live cattle were down 67 cents to $2.15.12 for the June contract. Feeder cattle were down $2.22 to $2.98.15 for the August contract, and lean hogs were up 80 cents to $99.10 for the June contract. And the Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours and currently sits at $72.40 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, a rare event today on Parliament Hill in Ottawa. King Charles read the speech from the throne, laying out Prime Minister Mark Carney's priorities in the upcoming session of Parliament. The speech confirmed that Canada is joining Europe's massive new rearmament plan called Rearm Europe. It's a move that could reduce our reliance on the U.S. as a source of military equipment at a time when U.S. President Donald Trump has called for Canada's annexation. Lots happening in Ottawa as MPs return to Parliament. And Brian Lilley, political columnist for the Toronto Sun, joins us to give us his thoughts on King Charles's speech from the throne. That is coming up next. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews. Well, the big news right now is Parliament resuming after 5 months. King Charles arriving in Canada and speaking at the throne speech. We're going to jump right into what was said, what it means, and what Canadians are thinking about it with Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilley. Brian, hello, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, Brian, King Charles is in Canada, of course, delivering the speech from the throne today. And a lot of chatter about this, that it's being shown as a strength, a sign of strength, I guess. So we've seen some competing polls on that issue, though. So what do Canadians actually think about this?
It depends on who you ask and what question you're asking. A poll by Pollara, a Toronto firm, asked, is it a good thing that the king is reading the speech from the throne? And on that, not the majority, but the plurality, about 45% said yes. Liberals more excited about the king reading the speech from the throne than supporters of any other party, obviously, because it's a Liberal government and the Liberal government is lenient into it. I guarantee you, if it was a Conservative government and this were happening, Conservatives would be the most supportive of this and Liberals less so. So, it's always a bit of which side do I support, plays into all of this. But the Angus Reid Institute asked a different set of questions, and the overwhelming majority just said, I don't care. It was only about 12% in Alberta said they were excited about the king reading the speech from the throne. The high was about 21% here in Ontario, and then up and down across the country. So the connection between Canada and the monarchy is not as strong as it used to be. In fact, even the Governor General's office put out a post on social media saying this is a great coming together of our two nations, and had a British flag and a Canadian flag. Well, no, King Charles, when he's here, is the King of Canada. He's not representing a foreign country. He is representing Canada. And the Governor General's office, which should know this, I'm not saying everyone watching needs to know that, but the Governor General's office should know that and understand it. And even they clearly don't. So I don't think the ties with the monarchy are as great as they once were.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting even for our viewers to know that, I think. And I believe it's been a couple of years since Charles has been here, and I think maybe even longer, because I think this is the first time since he was actually made king, right?
Yeah, first time since he's been king, but he's come fairly regularly, and it was an interesting little bit in the speech from the throne that obviously came from him and not the Prime Minister's office, where he mentioned that every time he comes to Canada, a bit more of the country enters his veins and goes straight to his heart. So I've covered him on past visits, and I can tell you, he's an impressive guy. I remember once him. I got very up close, and he was at the National War Memorial, where he laid a wreath today at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and he's speaking with a number of veterans, and he didn't need to be giving them his time. He chose to, and he leaned in, and you could tell that he was actually listening. You talk to some people who are mucky mucks, and they're looking past you. He leaned in and gave them his full attention, and that's when I said, I can get on board with this guy.
That is really neat. When is the last time that a monarch read the speech from the throne? Do you know, Brian?
I believe it was 1977, and before that, it was in the 1950s. And prior to that, they really didn't visit Canada.
Yeah, so this is significant. Yeah.
Mhm,
I think
yes.
the average person on the street is pretty indifferent to the fact that he read it, but I think most people would be like, oh, cool, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's about it. So, Brian, ahead of the speech from the throne, there was apparently a lot of back and forth on what could be said and what could not be said. So why is there a difference when the monarch is reading the speech?
Because the monarch is supposed to stay above the fray of politics. Now, so should the governor general. But over the years, that is corroded, and so when it's just the governor general, we can put in some partisan language here. We can be very political. Well, the King's office worked closely with the Prime Minister's office in finalizing the speech, and the King's office was very clear: nothing partisan. I mean, they still talked about all kinds of things that the government wants to do, things the government promised to do, but there could not be a partisan shot, say, at the Conservatives or the New Democrats, or you're not going to have King Charles read out something that could be taken as an insult to President Donald Trump down in Washington. So that's why it's a bit different than usual. It is how it always should be. But as I said, when it's the governor general or provincially a lieutenant governor, governments will push the envelope a bit, but they dare not with the king here.
Okay, so maybe let's get into some of the details. So what were the key takeaways from the speech today, Brian?
Well, if you paid attention during the election, you know what was said. This was essentially a rundown of Mark Carney and the Liberals' election promises and platforms read out with a very distinguished British accent. So maybe it sounded a bit more regal. He talked about building infrastructure projects. I'm sure that is something that everyone in Alberta's ears perked up at and said, oh, yeah, we want to hear more about that. Well, not a lot of details. It's not like they said, and we'll approve a new version of Northern Gateway or revive Energy East. But they did talk about natural or national infrastructure projects, did mention conventional energy, but still doesn't seem to like to utter the words oil or gas. I know it's the king reading it, but the speech comes from the prime minister and his team. Oil and gas not mentioned, but conventional energy, which is how he's describing it, that was mentioned. A good chunk on defense and Canada's sovereignty, including Canada joining Rearm Europe, a program the European Union has started, and one that there's going to be a lot of money spent. Well, are we going to be buying ammunition and defense supplies from the Europeans, or will we be selling to them? All that remains to be seen. But a lot of discussion of what was talked about during the election campaign, including dental program and a GST reduction. I'm sure that King Charles is very well versed in the intricacies of the GST. I'm not making fun of him here. It's just odd to hear a monarch talk about a reduction or a change in the goods and services tax.
I agree with you. I caught that too, and I thought it was a little funny. I think I even chuckled a little bit. Okay, so getting away from that, the first thing the House of Commons did when the MPs finally returned to Ottawa for the first time in nearly 5 months was elect a speaker. So, Brian, why did the Conservatives who wanted to run drop out? And also, is it a good or bad thing that the Liberal MP Francis Scarpaleggia defeated fellow Liberal Greg Fergus for this job?
I think it's a very good thing that Francis Scarpaleggia defeated Greg Fergus, because Greg Fergus, in my view, was very bad at being speaker. The speaker is supposed to be the impartial referee. They're supposed to, put it in baseball terms if you want, they're just there to call balls and strikes. Or in hockey, they're in the striped jersey, there to make sure both teams are playing a fair game. Greg Fergus let his liberal partisanship show too often when he was in the role. Very disappointing. I knew Greg Fergus before he was elected, always knew him to be a good stand-up man. He just was not made for that role. It didn't work out for him. Francis Scarpaleggia is someone who's been an MP since 2004. I think I met him around that time when he was first elected. I do not mean this, and so Speaker Scarpleggia, if you're watching, this is not an insult. For your new job, this is a compliment. He's boring, and that's good. Okay, you don't want the speaker being the showy person, the flashy person. We had one of those in the UK a few years ago, and he'd yell out order in this really dramatic way. The show was all about him. As I said, the speaker should be quiet and in the background, not taking away from the prime minister or the leader of the opposition or the various MPs speaking. You shouldn't notice them until they're making a ruling, and if they're making a ruling, hopefully it's fair. As for why the Conservative dropped out, I think there was a good chance that Chris d'Entremont, who's from Nova Scotia, I thought he could have won. I thought the Liberals would have backed him. It would have been good for the Liberals, take a Conservative vote off of the table. They need fewer votes to pass anything contentious. And I think that's why the Conservatives said, you know what? If you're on our team, we don't want you running for Speaker because that will put us in a bad position. We're not going to be seeing confidence votes anytime soon, but I think they just wanted to send the message. The Liberals look like they were going to get close to a de facto majority. They'll rule as if they have one, but with some of these recounts happening and seats flipping, they're down to 169 seats, 168 once you take the speaker out of the equation, because they're not voting unless there's a tie.
All right. Now, MPs won't get down to real business until Wednesday. Then they sit for a few weeks before leaving for the summer recess until September 15th. Must be nice. So weren't we told that there was a crisis? So why are they sitting? Why are they not sitting through the summer?
Traditionally, MPs did not sit through the summer because it was unbearable in Ottawa. It's an old building. Centre Block is an old building. It dates to 1921. West Block, where they're sitting now, dates to the 1800s. There's no air conditioning. It's stupidly humid in Ottawa. Well, now that they're sitting in West Block, it's a newly reconstructed chamber for the House of Commons, while Centre Block is being renovated for how I think it's taken a full decade. There's air conditioning there. They could sit. Let me tell you, sitting in the depths of an Ottawa heat wave, you would be sweltering in the old House of Commons. So that's traditionally why they didn't sit. You go back to your riding for the summer. And by the way, they are still working when they're at the riding. It's just different. But if we are in this crisis, and this was the most consequential election of our lifetimes, yeah, they should sit for the summer. Now, they always take off around Canada Day, and of course, the Quebec MPs have to be back for Saint Jean-Baptiste Day on June 25th, or as they call it in Quebec, the national holiday. But I've covered them once or twice when they have come back, I think just once in 20 years, where they did come back after Canada Day to tidy up some things. They could sit through July, pass a budget, pass some important things that need done. Anyways, they're not doing it, so it doesn't seem like it is the kind of crisis that you need Parliament for anyway.
Right, but you think, especially when the country hasn't had Parliament in 5 months, basically no government, you think it would be more crucial
And remember,
for them
before that, Jeanette, from September, late September until December, they did no government business because of the showdown over the Green Slush Fund.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a year almost when you really put into that. You mentioned there that you've covered it before, so I know you spent a lot of time on Parliament Hill. So what are some of the perks that come with that job that's interesting?
The Speaker. That's fascinating. The Speaker, you get an apartment in the, well, it used to be right adjacent to the chamber. I don't know where it is now in this,
Does it have air
during this renovation. Yeah. Oh, it does, but the big chamber did not. You get an apartment there, and that's because they used to sit from 9 in the morning until midnight, and if there was a big marathon session, the Speaker had to be there, so they might need to go take a nap, and so they have an apartment there. They have a farm just across the Ottawa River on the Quebec side. Used to belong to William Lyon Mackenzie King. Beautiful grounds. Beautiful old home. You get a car and driver, you get extra staff, you have a great entertainment budget because that's part of the Speaker's role. Foreign dignitaries come, foreign delegations, you're there to entertain them. There's a tradition of having your own Speaker's whiskey. Either some have had Scotch, Some have had a Canadian whiskey, but it's something that you not only serve, but you present as a gift to visitors. So it's got to tell you, having toured the house, been to some events out at the farm, it's a pretty sweet gig.
Yeah, like sweet gig for the speaker. Those weren't necessarily your perks, being able to work
Oh,
on
no,
Parliament.
not my perks. Being able to see everything.
That's
Um,
amazing. Mhm.
Oh, just being able to see it all and be in the middle of it. Now, of course, I was there when the Commons and the Senate were next door to each other, and so the usher of the Black Rod had to just walk down the hall and invite them down. Today, they had to get into little buses and shuttle down to the Senate because it's so far away. Just for time's sake, it was that's what they needed to be doing. It's about a 10-minute walk away.
Yeah, no, interesting. Okay, so there was a profile piece on Mark Carney recently that saw a lot of people complimenting him because it described him as punctual, he knows his files, he wants and he expects results. But you, Brian, said that Canadians should not be giving Mark Carney credit for these traits. Why not?
Because they should be expected. I'm not saying these aren't good things, but my point is Justin Trudeau lowered the bar so low that we hear that someone's punctual and we're like, oh, that's great. Oh, they know their files. Wow, amazing. This is how it should work. This is what you should expect from a prime minister. A prime minister should be a serious person. Justin Trudeau showed again at the speech from the throne that he's not. He was there. He was seated next to Stephen Harper, the two former prime ministers in attendance. I didn't see Jean Chrétien there, but he shows up in a suit and suede green Adidas running shoes. When he was prime minister, he was interested in his Instagram account and showing off his socks and performative statements. He wasn't interested in governing. You need a government. It's good that Mark Carney's punctual. It's good that he's expecting results. I was talking with an Ottawa insider today who said there will be a cabinet shuffle within the year because he is going to demand that these people do things and be competent, and some of them just aren't.
Well, it's a
but
good
we
thing in
should
a leader.
expect that.
Yes.
We should expect it.
Exactly. Brian, unfortunately, we're out of time here, but appreciate having you on once again. Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilley, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
U.S. tariffs and federal government restrictions on the oil and gas sector continue to be major concerns for Albertans. So is there any hope for change? Well, we're going to chat about that today with Alberta's Minister of Affordability and Utilities, Nathan Newdorf, who is also the MLA for Lethbridge East. He's joining us today from Edmonton. Nathan, welcome back. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thanks for having me, Jeanette. Really appreciate it.
Of course. So why don't we start with the tariff situation with the U.S.? It's a bit challenging to keep up with what's being tariffed and what isn't. So what are the main areas currently having to pay tariffs when exporting to the U.S.?
Well, there's quite a number still there. Steel and aluminum, top of the list, which obviously impact a lot of our manufacturing. Some canola products in relation to the tensions between the U.S. and China. So that's of concern for our agricultural sector, and then some of the auto sector, which is more Eastern related with the integration of that market, and anything that's not really covered by the Canadian, US, Mexico agreement, which hopefully is limiting some things, but we've definitely got to do a little bit more work to negotiate away from those tariffs as much as we can.
Are there any particular sectors in Lethbridge that are being impacted more than others by these tariffs?
Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, we do have a fairly strong manufacturing segment within Lethbridge, and the steel aluminum tariffs have a great deal of challenge, present a great deal of challenge for them, as well, like I said, the ag sector and anything canola or food related that wouldn't be covered by CUSMA can be of great concern, as a lot of our industry is related around those two product bases and sectors. So we're doing a lot of communication with our Minister of Agriculture, RJ Sigurdsson, as well as the Premier and other ministries to continue to advocate both at our federal level and the US federal level to remove these tariffs as quickly as possible.
What's Alberta doing to respond to the U.S.? And is anything also being done to soften that financial impact on businesses and consumers?
Well, In large part, it's been led by the provinces. As you know, we just came through a federal election, and we are looking forward to knowing who those federal ministers will be tomorrow as the Prime Minister unveils his cabinet. And then we can start working with the federal government a lot more than we've been able to make sure that we get combined voices to the table, to the right people in Washington, to begin the negotiations for really seeing some advancement in this. In large part, it's been led by our Premier and the Premier of Ontario to be the voices for Canada. There's more work to do, and having a cooperative federal government will be pivotal in the days ahead.
For sure. Nathan, are we seeing any new markets opening up globally for Alberta exports, like maybe including the ag sector, which is huge here?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've in Alberta, we've been very focused on Asia, Japan, South Korea, even into India, in that area. There's a huge demand for the products that we do have here in Alberta, and making sure we can get pathways to markets has been a primary focus. Having only one customer in the United States, is great a partner as they have been over the past, it does show a vulnerability in our economy to only have one customer. So we are very active in increasing those markets and access to those markets, and getting a very warm welcome. So we're really very, very encouraged by the signs that we're seeing early on.
Good. Okay. Where are things at with the Alberta relationship with Ottawa? I know Premier Smith has laid out these 9 demands for the federal government, such as ending the emissions cap, repealing Bill C-69, as well as the BC oil tanker ban, and ending net zero mandate, allowing coast-to-coast access to export oil and gas. So realistically, is Prime Minister Carney going to budge on any of this?
Well, I guess we have to wait and see. We definitely hope so. Federal elections, as many in Alberta will know, for a long time have been rather frustrating. We do often feel like the election's somewhat decided before we even get a chance to finish voting. And this time was no exception. We were much closer in getting a conservative government, which would have been much more cooperative with our viewpoint. But we didn't get that. So now we're waiting to see who the federal cabinet will be. And we are taking every opportunity to reset that relationship and begin again with some conversations, and making sure that they know our perspective, hoping they understand why we're bringing forward the concerns that we're bringing forward. But we really are hoping to see some action out of Ottawa. We've been promised things before, a lot of words, a lot of fancy words, a lot of words that sound pretty good, but then the actions and the follow through is not there. And that's partly why Albertans are as frustrated as they are. So we are willing to give diplomacy a chance at home as well, and see if we can get a reset to that relationship and some action on some much needed items. We're looking forward to tomorrow and seeing what we can do going forward.
Okay, so with that said, what will Alberta do if Carney doesn't move on any of these demands?
Well, we are going to take steps to protect ourselves from Ottawa and make sure that we follow the Constitution, and make sure that we challenge them in court to make sure that the federal government follows the Constitution, so we can have clear lines of authority and that we can protect Albertans. It is literally our job, elected here in Alberta, to put Albertans first. And our Premier has been very clear on that we will take the steps necessary to make sure that our economy and our people are protected. She is going to be setting and appointing a special negotiating team within the next few weeks to, again, make a table and provide a common ground to have those conversations. But we are not just going to sit and wait for the federal government anymore, and we are not going to take it without a fight if it requires. We are here to protect Albertans and put them first, and we are going to do that to the extent of the constitutional law that we have to do that.
Wow. With that said, the Alberta separation movement looks like they'll be likely meeting the requirements to force a referendum. And Premier Danielle Smith is being accused of stoking the separation fires. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't believe we are. I believe that we are trying to follow the Constitution, and for better or worse, the Constitution does provide an understanding if the people of any province feel frustrated enough. We are trying to follow that. We are trying to follow all the laws and treaties of the land. And our government will not be putting a vote on separation on a referendum. It is really up to the people of Alberta if they choose to, under our laws on a citizen-led referendum, then we'll have to listen to them. But we are not doing that as a government. We are listening to the people of Alberta.
Okay. There are some, of course, who believe that Alberta should, at least to some degree, follow Quebec's footsteps in using the threat of separation as leverage to force the federal government to bend. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's unfortunate when a relationship deteriorates to the use of threats, and to put it bluntly. And it's unfortunate that for a decade, we have tried to get Ottawa to understand our perspective here in Alberta, and they just don't appear to be listening. As I said earlier, we have a new prime minister. He has come to Alberta. He has at least said the things that we need to say to help reset that relationship, but we've got to see action. And we're not going to be led down the garden path by fancy words and promises. We need to see that happen. And we are here to govern for the people of Alberta who have expressed in numerous ways a significant level of frustration. So we are trying to manage that in as constructive a way as possible, and to make Ottawa aware that Albertans won't be tread upon lightly. They need to be respected, and they need to be considered for what we offer Canada and for what we give and pay into equalization. We'd like some respect for that, and the people of Alberta, I think, have directed us to stand up for them, and that's one of the things that we're here to do.
Okay. Nathan, you are the Minister of Affordability, so what is the province doing to make things more affordable, especially when it comes to housing?
Absolutely. Well, I'll get to housing in a minute. The largest thing that we're doing to help in affordability is bringing through the promised tax cut. That's pretty significant in total. That's a $1.2 billion commitment to Albertans to tax them less and leave money in their pockets. Each individual can expect up to $750 a year every year that this tax reduction is in place. And a family, $1,500 a year. That's significant. And that's in perpetuity going forward. So we're very proud of that work to make sure that we have low taxes that helps everybody who works and pays taxes. As for housing, very proud to support Minister Jason Nixon, the Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services, and the work that he's doing on that front to allow for supply to increase. We've seen a huge increase in housing starts. And of course, as that supply goes up, it stabilizes and hopefully moderates the price of a house. So we've also committed to supporting housing supports to the tune of $9 billion over the next 5 years, and to make sure that those who are struggling to make their payments have some avenues to get help. So there's a number of things we're doing on that, as well as working on lowering automobile insurance and house insurance. So lots of small steps. I know, not one huge silver bullet that solves every problem, but we're working on many directions and many ministries to help Albertans make ends meet.
Okay, speaking of directions, or looking in a different direction, do you have any updates on the ongoing saga of the AHS procurement accusations?
Yeah, that's one that we're watching closely, very concerned about. We want to make sure that we have transparency to Albertans, that they know exactly what's going on. The independent judicial review led by Judge Raymond Wyatt out of Manitoba, he is to have an initial report publicly available by the end of June for Albertans. We are very interested in seeing what that says and following all of his rulings. And we're making sure that every piece of information that he's asking for is made available. We hope that this finds no incorrect actions taken by anyone, but if they do, we will follow through and make sure that the law is followed and obeyed, and fines or whatever might be the case are instituted according to the law.
Yeah, and sorry, when did you think that we might see that report from the third-party investigation from the Judge Wyatt, and when will we see the report from the Alberta's Auditor General, Doug Wiley?
Judge Wyatt's report is due by the end of June.
Okay.
End of June. The Auditor General's review, he hasn't given us a specific date yet. He's working through a number of different pieces of information, quite a large volume of documentation. It might be a little longer than that, but of course he is independent of government and will release that and his findings in due course and when he's completed his investigation.
Okay. All right, Alberta's Information and Privacy Commissioner has found the provincial government in breach of its legal obligations under the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, or FOIP Act. So apparently government departments were imposing restrictive conditions, limiting access requests to a single topic and restricting the time period for searches. So what is the government's plan to respond to this?
Basically, that we're happy to work with the Privacy Commissioner in their requirements. And as we work through this process and understand the technical nature of what's required, we will comply with all the issues that we have to comply with. For further detail, we'll ask further questions to go to the Minister of Service Alberta and Red Tape Reduction as the ministry in charge of those requirements and rules. So a little bit technical in nature, but we're happy to comply with the Information and Privacy Commissioner to make sure that Albertans have access to the information they need.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being with us today, Nathan. Appreciate having you on.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. Great to be here.
Nathan Neudorf is Alberta's Minister of Affordability and Utilities and also the MLA for Lethbridge East. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.